In 1998, the Texas Rangers embarrassed themselves. In their second ever playoff series, they not only got swept by the New York Yankees in the ALDS, they never even held a lead. But this wasn't the worst of it, not even close. They were a team known for bad pitching and great offense, but the side that lost it wasn't on the mound. In fact, despite having the league's MVP on their side, they only scored 1 run the entire series. 1. This had never happened in Major League Baseball before, but that wasn't even the most embarrassing part of the story because somehow 1 year later, it was deja vu all over again. And after that, they wouldn't make the playoffs for another decade. This is the story of how the Texas Rangers became the most embarrassing playoff team in postseason history. Twice. But to truly understand the embarrassment of the Rangers, we need to go back to their beginnings. You might not know this, but they haven't always shared the name with a law enforcement agency with a less than stellar history. They were in fact, long ago, the Washington Senators. Nope, not that Washington Senators. This Washington Senators. Yeah, it's a little confusing. Let me explain. There was this team in Washington, D.C. known as the Senators from 1901 to 1960. This team had players like Walter Johnson and Harmon Killebrew on their team for their 60-season history. They were bad, but they were nowhere near as successless as the next one. They even won a World Series back in 1924. In the 1950s, Clark Griffith, the longtime owner, died and his son took over the team, and it was pretty clear that he was looking to move it. After eyeing San Francisco, he eventually settled on Minnesota, moving the team after 1960. This Washington Senators franchise became the Minnesota Twins, a team that has had playoff success, albeit not in the last 20 years and certainly not against the New York Yankees. But MLB wasn't done with the US Capitol, at least not yet, and they immediately installed a new Washington Senators team for the 1961 season. And this team was god-awful. From their first season as the new Senators in 1961 to 1971, the most games they ever won was 86. This also coincided with their highest placement in the standings at 4th, which, as you can see from this list, is very far from first. This was the year that Ted Williams took over, and he'd managed the team into their move to Texas, but he also probably wasn't a very good manager either. Outside of this year, they never won more than 76 games, and their most frequent finish in the standings was 10th. They finished over 45 games back in the standings twice, and lost more than 100 games 4 times. Frank Howard had the highest F4 by a hitter at 27.6, and no one else came within 8 during that time span on the team. Their best pitcher was a guy named Dick Bosman, a guy who had never even made an All-Star game. Simply put, this team was horrible, and I'm not sure I've hammered in this point enough. And as bad as this iteration of the Senators was, there was no light at the end of the tunnel. So after being bad in Washington, they decided to take their lack of talents to Texas after 1971. They were so bad Major League Baseball didn't see a need to replace the team's void in the city for another 34 years.
It seemed that baseball would never return.
Introducing the
Texas Rangers.
Better than the Washington Senators, the second version, still painfully and embarrassingly terrible for decades. In 1974, the Rangers had cobbled together a team that was actually pretty good by their standards. They finished second and had the Rookie of the Year and the MVP that season. The Rookie of the Year, Mike Hargrove, hit an impressive .323 that was accompanied by a 10.3% walk rate. And while he didn't have much power, his on-base skills fueled him to an incredible 139 WRC+. He was kinda like yesteryear's Stephen Kwan. Jeff Burrows, the MVP, also hit over 300, but he could also hit the ball over the fence. He hit 25 home runs that year and was also another Walker Texas Ranger with a 13.7% walk clip. Additionally, they had future Hall of Famer Fergie Jenkins, who threw 328 innings with a 2.82 ERA. Good enough for a second place Cy Young finish to Mike Marshall, who was a reliever. That's a crazy story for another time. Unfortunately, the team couldn't quite pass the eventual World Series champs, the Oakland A's, but their manager was this guy. Billy Martin, the guy who eventually managed the Yankees many times, managed the team in 1974. But this Texas Rangers team was more of a mirage than an indication of a bright future. After 74, the Rangers bounced between bad, mediocre, and almost good enough for the next 21 years. Yeah, I'm fast forwarding a bit, but nothing really happens to this team. They had Nolan Ryan. They had a Nolan Ryan take down a very young, dumb Robin Ventura, but in terms of overall team success, yeah, nothing much. This is a list of the accomplishments from the Texas Rangers from 1972 to 1995. Okay, I'm kidding. That's not giving them enough credit. After all, they were able to at least stay in Texas. They had a few bloopers, like this famous one of Jose Canseco letting a homer go off his head. They had a few no-hitters like Nolan Ryan and Kenny Rogers' perfect game. They even were a starting place for guys like Sammy Sosa. They finished last a few times, they finished second a few times, and hey, they even finished first one time. Oh, but the season was canceled, so they didn't make the playoffs. And they were 10 games under 500 when the season did get canceled, so it wasn't like they were robbed of anything great like the Montreal Expos, except for their first playoff appearance in franchise history. Oh, right. If you've made it this far, you should like and subscribe. Wait, wrong script, sorry. If you've made it this far, I hope I've emphasized just how bad this franchise is. From 1961 through 1995, that's 35 seasons, they had a grand total of 0 playoff appearances. Not a single postseason trip. Not when only one team from each league made the playoffs. Not when the LCS was invented. Not even in the first year of the wild card era. Aside from the few things I've mentioned, the one MVP, the one Rookie of the Year, the few no-hitters, the occasional blooper, there was absolutely nothing for this franchise to show. That is until 1996. 96 was different. If you've ever seen SB Nation's The History of the Seattle Mariners, you probably remember the 96 season as a disappointment for one AL West team. One with 4 future Hall of Famers, a team coming off an exciting postseason where a walk-off ALDS probably saved their franchise, missed the playoffs the following season. Well, the team that took the AL West crown from them was the Texas Rangers, a team who had also never made the playoffs.
The Rangers are the American League Western Division champions, the first time in 25 years.
This team was exciting. They had the MVP. They had a Pudge Rodriguez who had established himself as one of the best catchers in the league. They had a solid veteran first baseman, Will Clark, and Rusty Greer, a guy who was a doubles machine. They even had the manager of the year, Johnny Oates. Unlike the Mariners of 95, however, they weren't able to end the season of the big bad Yankees. But they did put up a fight. Despite losing the series 3-1, they actually won the first game and lost the next 2 by 1 run each. Juan Gonzalez had one of the most dominating postseasons you could have, hitting 5 home runs in that series too. They also held leads in each of the last 3 games, the final one being the most devastating. Despite going up 4-0 early in Game 4, the Yankees battled back with Bernie Williams hitting this solo shot in the 9th to seal the deal at 6-4. This might have been a disappointing exit, but after 35 years, they were finally in, and they had a dynasty on their hands. Oops. But hey, the Mariners had 3 future Hall of Famers on their team. Alright, we're back. This team had a little hiccup, but it's back and better than ever. We have a healthy Juan Gonzalez, a healthy Will Clark, a more dominant Pudge Rodriguez, a solid Rusty Greer, better-ish but still not great pitching, and what is this? 2 fewer wins than 1996? Hey, at least Juan Gonzalez is probably going to win MVP because he had 157 RBIs, and that's the only batting stat that matters. Okay, but really, despite only having 88 wins, the Rangers aren't that bad of a team. Sure, none of their starters had ERAs below 4.23, and they gave a combined 46 starts to 3 guys who had ERAs above 5.9, but I swear they're not that bad. In addition to the eventual MVP winner, they also have 3 other guys who had at least 20 homers. In addition to that, they had Roberto Kelly and Mike Sims, who, despite not even playing a combined 162 games, managed to hit 32 homers between the 2 of them. And Rusty Greer, our previously mentioned solid vet, that guy hit over 300. Outside of Clark, the rest of the infield is fairly rough offensively, but the outfield, first base, and catcher make up for that. If anything is going to kill this team in the playoffs, it's going to be their pitching staff. But they won the division, which means they won't have to play the number 1 seed in baseball, which is good because the Yankees won 114 games. So let's see which team they're going to match up with.
Series Game 1, the Texas Rangers and the New York Yankees.
Wait. Why is it the Yankees? Okay, so here's the weird thing about the single wildcard era. From 1995 until 2011, the playoffs would be arranged with the best team in the league facing the wildcard team, with the second and third division winners playing each other. In 1996, the second and third teams were the Cleveland Indians and the Texas Rangers. But clearly they weren't playing each other in the 98 playoffs, so what gives? Well, MLB had created a caveat to the playoff arrangements. If the best team in the league and the wildcard team were playing in the same division, they wouldn't play each other in the division series. Instead, the wildcard team would play the second best division winner, and the best team in the league would play the worst division winner. In 1998, the wildcard winner was the Boston Red Sox, who shared the AL East with the New York Yankees. This meant that instead of facing Cleveland, Texas, as the worst division winner, would have to face the juggernaut Yankees. In 1998, the Yankees offense was deadly. Derek Jeter, Tino Martinez, Bernie Williams, Paul O'Neill, Darryl Strawberry, all of these guys mashed, and they didn't necessarily kill you with the long ball. In fact, no one on their team had more than 28 homers, but they were just a relentless group of on-base machines going back to back to back to back to back to back. This team was the last team a team like the Rangers with their pitching staff wanted to face. The Yankees starting pitching core wasn't quite as deadly, but all of them had ERA pluses over 104, which meant they were all above league average. For context, a 100 ERA plus is exactly league average, and the Rangers had 4 guys who started at least 13 games with ERA pluses 15% or worse than league average. The Rangers probably weren't going to win this rematch against the Yankees, but it's not like their hitting is going to fail them, right? You've spent the last 9 minutes for this moment. It's time to see how on earth the Rangers embarrassed themselves so so badly that they became the most embarrassing playoff team ever. Here's how it went. In Game 1, David Wells faced off against Todd Stoudemire. Wells was far better than Stoudemire, who only pitched 10 games for the Rangers that season, but Stoudemire still managed to have an ERA plus 11% better than league average. He's not that bad of a pitcher, and in Game 1 he showed it, pitching like a star against this dangerous Yankees lineup. Unfortunately, he made one mistake in the second inning. After striking out Chewy Davis, Stoudemire walked Jorge Posada, who got to third after a Chad Curtis double. Scott Brosius would single and bring in Posada and move Curtis to third. Then something really weird happened. Chuck Knobloch struck out and Brosius would be caught stealing second. 3 down, 1 run in, right? Except Brosius caught himself in a rundown, and during this rundown, Curtis scored before Brosius was tagged. This meant that the run would count, 2-0 Yankees. And this would be the final score. David Wells and Mariano Rivera would dominate the Rangers offense, holding MVP Juan Gonzalez hitless and only allowing 6 base runners all game. And so, despite Stoudemire pitching 2-run, 8-inning ball, the Rangers were down 1-0. A 2-0 loss isn't embarrassing. It happens all the time. The 2021 Braves lost Game 1 of the NLDS 2-1, and they ended up winning the World Series. 2-0 is not embarrassing at all. Tell me what happened to baseball. How is this embarrassing? Oh, you're about to see. Anyway, there's still a Game 2. The Rangers have to be thinking, hey, just win Game 2 and you'll be fine, right? And the Rangers have their 20-game winner, Rick Helling, on the mound too. Helling's had a weird history with the Rangers. He came up with the team in 1994, and after being bad from 1994 until 1996, across a huge sample size of 112 innings, they traded him to Florida as the player to be named later in the John Burkett for Ryan Dempster trade. Helling actually ended up having a good time in Florida too. In 1996, he had a 195 ERA in 27 innings, and in 1997 he had a 4.38 ERA, which was below average technically, but not by much. That's when the Rangers reacquired him for Ed Vosberg, and then he went on to have a decent 97 with the Rangers, and he might have been their best pitcher in 1998. Going against the Rangers is lefty Andy Pettitte. Pettitte's 98 had been a bit of a down season. After having an 8-WAR season in 1997, his 4.24 ERA was a significant setback, and his 104 ERA plus was worse than Helling's 109 ERA plus. On top of that, Pettitte had a history of struggling in the postseason. Just last season in 97, after his incredible year, Pettitte's ALDS starts were horrible. His first start in Game 2 saw him allow 7 runs in 5 innings. The Yankees had even led this game 3-0, but after a 5-run fourth by Cleveland, manager Joe Torre, for whatever reason, sent him back out there, where he allowed 2 more runs. Then in Game 5, with the Yankees season on the line, Pettitte allowed 4 runs in 6 2/3 innings. Those 4 runs were just enough to sink New York, as they lost the game 4-3, sending Cleveland to the ALCS. A Pettitte coming off a bad season and a guy who had limited postseason success to this point, this was the Rangers' chance. After a scoreless first inning, the Yankees push a run through in the bottom of the second thanks to a Shane Spencer homer. You might want to remember this man. Pettitte continues to put down the Rangers, and after 4 innings, he hasn't even allowed a base runner. In the bottom of the 4th, Helling allows a Scott Brosius homer after a Shane Spencer single, and suddenly it's 3-0. He gets out of it without any more damage, and in the top of the 5th, there is light for the Rangers. Juan Gonzalez doubles on a play that he really should have been thrown out on if Chuck Knobloch could have just held on to the ball, and Gonzalez moves to third on a Will Clark flyout. Then steps in Ivan Pudge Rodriguez. Pudge is a firmly established star. 1998 was his 7th straight All-Star game and his 4th straight year hitting over 300. It's also his 2nd year in a row hitting 20 homers or more. Pudge swings at the first pitch and whiffs. As Joe Morgan points out, all he has to do is put the ball in play. With 1 out, almost anything gets Gonzalez in. Pudge takes 2 straight balls on the edge of the plate, and then takes this generous strike 2 call, and I do mean generous, that evens the count. Pudge spoils the next pitch, and then this happens.
Another 2-2 pitch. Lined hard, base hit, and the Rangers are on the board. Gonzalez trots home on the RBI single from Rodriguez. 3-1 New York.
And the tying run is coming to the plate with 1 out. Sure, it's the bottom of the order, but Todd Zeile finished the season with a 108 OPS plus, and Mike Sims put up a monstrous 150 OPS plus and a near 1000 OPS. The bottom of this lineup rakes. This is a perfectly nothing. 8 pitches later, Pettitte is out of the inning. They didn't even get the ball out of the infield. And this 3-1 score is how the game ends. Helling does his part, pitching 6 innings, and Tim Crabtree pitches 2 perfect innings in relief for Texas. Unfortunately, Pettitte is just lights out for the rest of the night. He pitches 2 more innings, allowing a 2-out double to Roberto Kelly, the only other hit, and Jeff Nelson and Mariano Rivera close things out, allowing just 2 singles themselves. The Rangers are down in the ALDS series 2-0, and they've only scored 1 run. By the way, you might want to keep that 1 run in mind. it's a special one. But the Rangers pitching, which was their weakness coming into the series, has only allowed 5 runs. If they can get their offense together, they could put up a fight. And it's not like no team has come down from a 2-0 deficit in the newly implemented division series either. The Mariners did this against the evil Bronx Bombers just 2 years ago. And Texas gets to go back to Arlington. The Rangers have dominated at home. They have a .593 winning percentage in their own ballpark compared to a .494 winning percentage on the road. And their offense was far more alive too, scoring 64 more runs at home than they did on the road. They also allowed 65 more runs, but we're just gonna ignore that for now. Aaron Seeley is pitching for Texas, and he's probably a little bit better than Helling, who pitched game 2. 1998 represented a bit of a comeback season for Seeley. The former first-round pick burst onto the scene as a 23-year-old in 1993, starting 18 games and carrying a .274 ERA through 111.2 innings. He finished 3rd in the Rookie of the Year vote, losing out to the second best Angel of all time with a Fish last name, and Jason Berry, who simply pitched more innings than Seeley. In 1994, Seeley continued his success in the strike-shortened season, holding a .383 ERA in 143 1/3 innings. He was the Sox second-hand man right behind Roger Clemens. Then 1995 happened. The season was delayed, but once the strike subsided, Aaron Seeley was primed for his best year yet, and with star Roger Clemens beginning the year on the DL, he got his first opening day start as well. But after just 6 starts, Seeley's season was done. He had soreness in his right arm after a May start against Seattle, and then couldn't make it back after 2 rehab starts. In August, Boston shut him down for good. He came back in 1996 and was terrible. A .532 ERA in 29 starts, and a DL stint for a ribcage injury showed maybe the offseason hadn't given him the rest that he needed. 97 was equally disappointing as he had an even higher ERA, but he was able to make it through the whole season, and his August, which was disastrous, made his overall season line look a little worse than it was. It was still pretty bad though. And just like that, his Red Sox career was over. He went from being the second-hand man right behind one of the greatest pitchers of all time, an opening day starter, and the possible future star of the Red Sox, to being exiled to Texas, along with Mark Brandenburg, who didn't even play again after 1997, and Bill Hasselman, a backup catcher, in exchange for Damon Buford and Jim Leyritz. Seeley needed to prove himself in 1998, and boy did he. A .423 ERA might not look like a lot, but you gotta remember the time in which Seeley pitched. This was during the healthy breakfast era, and Seeley was pitching in a hitter's park. So by ERA plus standards, a stat which considers run environment, it saw him as a pitcher who was 13% better than the league average pitcher. It was also Seeley's first All-Star appearance.
From the Texas Rangers, pitcher Aaron Seeley.
And the man pitched more than 200 innings for the first time in his career. He had proven himself during the regular season, and now Texas's season was on the line. The first inning goes exactly as planned for Seeley. 1, 2, 3, and the ball doesn't even leave the infield. Texas gets a base runner in the first, but Gonzalez pops out to end the threat. The second inning shakes the boat for Seeley, but doesn't sink him, as he is able to work around a double and a walk to keep the game scoreless. The Rangers again get a runner on base, but again they can't do anything. The boat shakes a little more for Seeley in the next inning after a single by legendary Phillies manager Joe Girardi, but Chuck Knobloch grounds into a double play on a 2-1 count, and after an infield single by Derek Jeter, Paul O'Neill grounds out harmlessly to end the inning. The Rangers get yet another runner on the next inning, and even get him to second, but a strikeout by Mark McLemore and a groundout by Rusty Greer leave things again scoreless. Seeley and David Cohn trade scoreless innings in the fourth, and suddenly we have a certified pitcher's duel on our hands. Seeley again faces trouble in the fifth, thanks to a single and an error, but there was never more than one runner on at a time because Seeley actually picked off one of them. Again, the Rangers can't do anything with a base runner after Royce, Miguel Tejada, Clayton strikes out, and Todd Zeile is caught stealing. 5 innings, bunch of base runners, but no runs for either team. Then we get to the sixth. Seeley gets Jeter to fly out to begin the inning, and things are looking pretty good. 2 more outs, and then the Rangers get to turn things back over to the top half of the order. The Rangers need their offense to wake up, but at least Seeley's done his job. After this, however, the wheels start to fall off. Paul O'Neill hits a homer on a pitch that he even thought was going to be an easy flyout to make the game 1-0. Seeley gets another out, and he looks like he's 1 pitch away from getting out of the inning before Tino Martinez beats the shift on an infield single. After a double by Tim Raines, the Yankees have runners on second and third, with Shane Spencer coming up to the plate. Spencer is a 26-year-old rookie, and if you're not a Yankees fan, you've probably never heard of him. He's a guy who only played 27 games for the Yankees in 1998, but he does this.
On the first pitch, a long drive to left. Greer back, looking up. He's done it again. Pretty soon, the devil is going to come back and claim his part of the deal.
He has had the postseason of his life in just 6 plate appearances, and he's now been the dagger for the Rangers twice. It's 4-0 Yankees. The Rangers are not coming back from this. They don't even try, really. The Rangers only get 3 more base runners on the entire game. The only time they even get a runner to third is when Mark McLemore walks, moves over to second on a grounder, and to third on a flyout, and then crosses the plate when it doesn't even count because Will Clark grounds out to second for the 3rd out of the 9th inning.
Ground ball to second, Knobloch, the Yankees sweep.
The Rangers have just been swept, shut out twice, and scored a total of 1 run. Not only did the Rangers get swept, their offense, which was supposed to be great, barely put up a fight.
But they take the Texas Rangers 3-0, allowing them 1 run in the 3-game series.
The 1999 Rangers were a far better team. While they missed out on Randy Johnson, they were at least able to retain Royce Clayton. Wait, I'm sorry, I'm paraphrasing this insane headline right now. Even though they missed out on Randy Johnson, they did end up signing Rafael Palmeiro.
Now, a familiar face has come home to Arlington.
He was replacing Will Clark, who departed after the 1998 season, and this was essentially the only big difference in their lineup from the 1998 season to the 1999 season. But it was a big one. Palmeiro was coming off a 43 home run season and would prove himself to be a powerful punch between Gonzalez and Pudge. He'd even win a Gold Glove, proving excellent defense in his 28 games at first base. Guys, this can't be right. While the pitching staff would remain pretty much the same, there'd actually be some regression, but the offense was so good it propelled them to a 95-win season. Pudge, Juan Gonzalez, and Rafael Palmeiro combined for 121 homers, and Lee Stevens, Rusty Greer, and Todd Zeile all hit at least 20. The bench wasn't quite as good as the season before, but it didn't need to be. The team was better at home, better on the road, and ran away with the division by 8 games. But again, the Red Sox won the wild card, and the Yankees, who weren't quite as good, ended up winning the AL East again. So this meant that despite winning 95 games, the Rangers were again the 3rd best division winner. This meant we had an ALDS rematch on our hands. Surely,
don't call me Shirley.
Surely history was not going to repeat itself again. Right? Of course not, because this one would be so much worse. Unlike in 1998 when the offense just didn't show up, the Rangers were hit by the double whammy. In Game 1, Aaron Seeley, who was less good in 1999, allowed 4 runs in 5 innings, and the bullpen allowed another 3 runs to make it a total of 8. On the other end, Orlando Hernandez was walkathoning the Rangers, walking 6 batters, neither with runners on, and he was somehow able to go 8 innings with Jeff Nelson closing out the ninth. The Rangers did not score in this game. Another shutout, and with it, the Rangers had now gone 42 playoff innings dating back to 1996, in which they had scored a grand total of 1 run. Game 2 of the 1999 ALDS was almost exactly the same as Game 2 of the 1998 ALDS. Rick Howling started for the Rangers, Andy Pettitte started for the Yankees, Mariano Rivera completed the save, and the game ended 3-1. The biggest difference in this one is that the Rangers had their first lead. In the top of the 4th, Juan Gonzalez hit this homer to make it 1-0. And with it, you can set off the fireworks because the Rangers have now scored 2 whole runs against the Yankees in 46 innings dating back to 1996. Progress. Maybe they can tack on a few more runs and make this, it's tied. The lead is gone, and now they're down 2-0 in the ALDS again, in which they've only scored 1 run in 18 innings. Again, the 1999 Rangers had a lot of overlap with the 98 Rangers. In fact, Palmeiro was the only starter who wasn't with the team the season prior. This means you have a flight full of guys heading back to Arlington who are all experiencing the wildest deja vu they've ever had before. They take October 8th off, and they are ready to play October 9th. Esteban Loaiza is on the mound. He's a 27-year-old who's had a fairly decent season for Texas in 30 games, 15 of which were starts. Loaiza also has the wildest post-baseball history that I can't really get into right now, but you're going to want to look this up. If I'm the Rangers, I'm feeling alright about my chances at home against the Yankees' number 3 starter. Who could that even be? Roger Clemens? Wait, what? Okay, so here's the thing. Roger Clemens, who might be the best starting pitcher in Major League history, signed with New York in 1999. He was coming off 2 resurgent seasons with Toronto, but 1999 Clemens wasn't the absolute stud he was from, well, pretty much any other time in his career. In fact, his .460 ERA was the highest ERA he ever had in his career. So it wasn't some crazy late season shenanigans when the Yankees felt they needed to use Clemens in a do or die finale. He was legitimately their 3rd best pitcher. But even as their 3rd best pitcher, he was still Roger Clemens. The game started disastrously for Texas. A triple by Jeter, a walk to Bernie Williams, and then after a strikeout for the 2nd out of the inning, a well past his prime Darryl Strawberry hits this 3-1 bomb.
So Loaiza is going to get those calls. The pitch swung on and hit in the air to deep left center. Greer going away back and good when that ball is gone.
Roger Clemens, despite only having 2 strikeouts the entire game, shuts down the Rangers offense, getting 13 outs on the ground and going 7 shutout innings. Loaiza calmed down after the terrible first, but it was too late. Despite going 7 innings and not allowing any more runs, 2 innings of Mariano Rivera ended things quickly for the Rangers, coaxing a double play after Jeff Nelson allowed a leadoff single in the 8th, and then stranding a runner at second after a leadoff single in the 9th. The Texas Rangers, known for their offense, have just played 6 playoff games in 2 years, and they've been steamrolled in every single one of them. The total run differential in these 2 series? New York 23, Texas 2. You know how many times in Major League history a team scored 1 run or less in an entire postseason of at least 3 games played? Twice. Once in 1998 by the Texas Rangers, and once in 1999 by the Texas Rangers. They are the only team ever to only score 1 run in a playoff series. And this future that looks so bright for Texas? Gone. They traded Juan Gonzalez after the season as his contract was expiring, and despite retaining Pudge Rodriguez and Palmeiro, and the consolation for not signing Randy Johnson, as well as adding Kenny Rogers of the baseball variety, they fell to last. When they added A-Rod in 2001, they were still last. In fact, they were last every year until 2004, when they finished 3rd. And they didn't finish as high as 2nd until 2008, when they were under 500. The 98 and 99 Rangers represent a new leaf in the franchise's terrible history. But all they got was an embarrassment and a return to the status quo. At least they made it to the World Series back-to-back years in 2010 and 11, and they looked destined to win in 2011. Right, Nelson Cruz? Oh god, no. Oh no. Nelson!